Activated.
Analyzing.
Update complete.
Hey guys, real quick shout out to Eagle Moss. Because I always try to improve the show and the information presented, I did some research and found a company called Eagle Moss that does a lot of collectibles. They're probably only one tick less thorough than I was when it comes to researching ships and lore. So I asked them if they'd be willing to team up with me and send some ships my way for research, and guess what? They agreed. Supporting my partners supports my channel. Please consider checking out the link below and tell them the Lore Reloaded said hi. The Intrepid Class is a vessel made in a post-Wolf 359 era. This means that its design would be more in line with the thinking of ship designers in the 23rd century than those in the beginning to mid-24th century. Designed and launched in the late 24th century, the 2370s to be exact, the Intrepid class was built with two specific goals in mind. A class of ship that would be able to be used in combat scenarios, and one that would also be able to conduct scientific endeavors. The Intrepid would have multiple innovations that would mostly lend themselves towards combat, but include auxiliary benefits. Indeed, until the advent of the Sovereign, the Intrepid class was considered the most advanced ship in the fleet. Classified as a long-range explorer, the ship's armor plating was the standard duranium hull that we see with its Starfleet contemporaries. The ship had 15 decks, with the majority of the ship's operations located middle to back of the ship and crew quarters towards the front. In parallax, the width of the ship was stated to be between 116 to 118 meters. This is interesting when you consider that the width of the Defiant is 134 meters. Its length, however, is never stated, but claimed by Rick Berman and Rick Sternbach to be 344 meters. For those who are keeping count, this is about double the size of the Defiant, which is only 134 meters. Unlike most ships, the Intrepid was designed to be able to land on planets. While this is a neat aspect, I have been unable to really find a viable use or explanation for why the Intrepid was designed with this ability. Given that most resources I've found claim the ship was meant for long-range endeavors, you might be able to justify this in case the ship would need to be out of space for repairs, though it did generally rely on space docks to get everything fixed, so maybe? The Intrepid class was the fastest ship until the development of the Prometheus class. While the original ship, the USS Intrepid, was not outfitted with it, the second ship, the USS Voyager, and all subsequent ships would be outfitted with a Class 9 warp drive, which boasted a tricyclic input manifold and variable geometry pylons. The warp speeds of the ship are very inconsistent. Ship speeds, times, and sustainability would be contradicted in technical manuals, episodes, and even characters would say different speeds and different sustainability times. Sometimes in the same episode. While there are several episodes and tech manuals that would contradict this, the most consistent, i.e. the most stated speed, means that the Intrepid class could maintain a maximum cruise speed of 9.975. A speed which would cause significant damage to previous Starfleet vessels. Again, there are a few episodes that contradict this, but generally the ship could also increase to speed warp 9.9 for a few minutes before sustaining damage. As I stated, the nacelles would be connected to variable geometric pylons, which would mean that they would activate and be raised in position to sustain a warp field. Curiously, the pylons were activated by the amount of power the warp core fed through the ship, and not if there was any intent for the use of the warp drive. The pylons would be raised if the warp core of the ship had an output of energy enough to sustain warp drive itself. The reason for wanting this would include scenarios such as additional power being needed to extend scanning range, engage in combat, you get the point. Interesting note, while in a technical manual that was both unpublished and considered beta canon, it is stated that the pylons were designed to be eco-friendly to subspace. This could explain the odd designs of the warp drives of the Intrepid, Akira, and Defiant, suggesting these ships were built with warp drives that wouldn't damage subspace like we saw in earlier designs. It is stated that with the type of warp core installed, the one on Voyager and would be with subsequent models, could go 3 years without refueling. However, in Voyager, we see that both power and fuel are a constant necessity within the time frame given. The reason given for this inconsistency is explained that the ship would constantly need upkeep and maintenance, requiring for extra work and thus extra use of resources. So, the ship could be a long-range vessel as long as it constantly has shipyards that can work on it, you know, when it's long-range away from Federation space. That said, when used consistently on screen, the propulsion system was very impressive for both its era and size. And you could explain that the scenario in which Voyager was extraordinary and maybe other ships would have done better if more prepared. The tactical systems of the Intrepid class reflected the still ever-changing mission of Starfleet. The ship was outfitted with technologies both from previous classes and some with a few new tricks. These weapons included up to at least 13 Type 10 phaser arrays. Different episodes on Voyager would indicate that even more phaser arrays exist, though it is claimed by the designer of the ship that there were only 13. The arrays, like those found on the Galaxy class, were powerful but also used substantial power and required a recharge time. The Intrepid also had at least 5 torpedo launchers. While the torpedo launchers appeared to be designed for standard torpedoes, we know that it had the ability to fire Class 9 torpedoes, Class 10 torpedoes, and tri-cobalt devices. Oh, and it could also be modified to fire Cardassian quantum torpedoes. Which is interesting because to my knowledge we never see any actual Cardassian ship fire their own quantum torpedoes. Probably the most advanced part of the tactical systems would be the Deflector Shields. There were at least 14 external shield grids that included multiphasic and multispectrum shielding. These shields would be the most advanced for their time and would possibly only be usurped when the Prometheus was outfitted with regenerative shielding. The specifications of the Intrepid class state that the ship was to have a crew of up to 140 members. It was outfitted with a medical bay, including a Generation 1 emergency medical hologram. This hologram could be used in case the medical crew was incapacitated. The ship also had several recreational options, including holodecks and lounging areas. Now, perhaps one of the most contentious pieces about Voyager, at least on this channel, is its purpose. Unfortunately, like we see in other areas of the ship, the writing is very inconsistent on what type of scientific equipment Voyager had available. In the episode Shattered, Janeway quite clearly says that Voyager does not have an astrometrics lab. Chakotay assures her that Harry Kim will design and install it at a later point. Ironically, there are other episodes where Chakotay states that astrometrics had been installed before Voyager launched. While weak, there is a way to make both of these statements correlate. It is possible that Voyager did have a stellar cartography, but not astrometrics. Astrometrics could possibly be a more powerful, updated form of stellar cartography. However, this explanation is not only contrived, but would put holes in those who believe Voyager to be a long-range explorer and science vessel, because you would think that stellar cartography would be very important if you're going on long-range missions. With the exception of stellar cartography, Voyager was outfitted with bays that would allow it to conduct medical, biology, and holographic research. So to say that it was not a multi-purpose ship that did have a science division to it would be inaccurate. From a lore perspective, there were 2 confirmed ships, one named USS Voyager, and one named the USS Bellerophon. And yes, I know I probably got that name wrong. I did actually watch the episode, I'm just bad with names. It is also possible that the USS Intrepid and the USS Valiant, not that one, the other one, was an Intrepid class vessel. The most well-known ship is of course Voyager. However, it is worth noting that seeing the USS Bellerophon during the Dominion War has many implications for the Intrepid class. The mission the Intrepid class vessel was on was of the utmost importance and carried several high-ranking diplomats and at least one admiral. It is likely that Starfleet relied on the advanced deflector shields and speed of the Intrepid for its missions. It would also indicate that the Intrepid class was probably used more for courier and scouting than anything else. Given the relative slow speeds of Dominion ships, this would fit in well with the need of the Intrepid. With the return of Voyager, it is also quite likely the advancements of Voyager itself would be incorporated into later Intrepid designs. But what do you guys think? Do you like the Intrepid? Do you think it's a good vessel? What do you think of a good use for the ship was? Let me know in the comments below. Guys, this weekend I'm going to be doing a geek breakdown where we do everything Intrepid lore, including Voyager. This is not going to be my usual rants. This is going to be talking about the positive and great things about the Intrepid class itself. So please make sure you're there because I will also be doing giveaways of Eagle Moss collectibles. Again, shout out to Eagle Moss who let me take a closer look at their models, and if you guys want to discuss with me further, I'll definitely see you on Wednesday, March 17th, 2018, and we'll take a deeper look. But beyond that, I want to say, guys, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next Lore Reloaded.